The Guardian of the World presents Sot's Journal, Trapped Between Shadows and Beasts.
Nindak, the day 7th of the month of Athirmenes of the year 42nd after Universal War. My dearest journal, have I made a grave error? Has my thirst for vengeance clouded my judgment and driven me to the brink of madness? Yet, after all that has transpired these past days, it is a miracle I am still alive, and that those wretched creatures have not taken this small journal from me, which has become my sole companion, providing a small measure of solace in my solitude. It all began on New Year's Eve, after Arus delivered his annual speech. This year, unlike the last, his tone was markedly more cheerful and uplifting, culminating with a jovial toast and an energetic celebration that extended well into the night. Despite the fatigue and boredom, I resolved to remain until the very end, ensuring that all others had retired to their quarters before I commenced my escape. Once alone, I rose from my seat and walked slowly through the hall, knowing this was the last time I would set foot on that place. I paused to observe the various objects meticulously arranged on the beautiful wooden shelves that lined the pristine white walls. As my gaze wandered over these decorations, I could not help but linger on an elegant and unique wooden object composed of concentric bands adorned with irregular patterns, their hues ranging from brown to yellow, interspersed with orange and white. Beneath it, an inscription read, Gaius Agate. Determined not to become further engrossed in that object, I turned and made my way towards the exit to carry out my plan. Just before leaving the hall, I approached the large table where the remains of the feast were still laid out. Tapping my fingers on the table, I paused, my eyes fixed on the grandeur seat of the Guardian of the Worlds. I recalled how that old man had observed me throughout this celebration with a peculiar gaze, one that left me with a sense of unease, making me wonder repeatedly if he could somehow read my thoughts. Pushing those thoughts aside, I marched resolutely to my room, eager to finally execute my long-awaited plan, though I was filled with the nervousness of those who fear that something might go awry and ruin everything. However, as soon as I left the hall, I encountered a group of elegant servants. My heart fastened when I realized they were coming towards me.
Pardon me.
One of them said, approaching me, though I tried to ignore his call. For a moment, a chill ran down my spine. I feared the master had ordered them to stop me, which would have completely foiled my plan,
Prithee, pardon me, young man.
repeated the servant when he saw that I was not holding. Faced with his persistence, I realized it would be far worse to flee than to stop, for what were the chances that they actually knew of my intentions?
Might thou be the last one?
Inquired he finally. Without uttering a word, I nodded. Seeing them converse to each other once more, I felt a great sense of relief, and not daring to tempt fate to see if they were aware of my plans, I resumed my path with a quicker pace. Once back in my quarters, somewhat calmer, I stood by the door for a few moments, listening for any sounds from the hallway or outside. After several minutes of standing still in the darkness, I believed that all was quiet and that I could continue with my plan. I slowly opened the window, striving to make no noise, And once the aperture was sufficiently wide, I slipped through it without hesitation, landing just behind the bushes that surround the Grand Sea. As I prepared to push through them, I heard the footsteps of two guards approaching my hidden spot.
Did you see that?
Asked one as I watched them position themselves directly in front of me. But thanks to the thick vegetation, they could not see me.
Yes. What could it be? I don't know, but we should check it out.
As this conversation unfolded, confident that the dense natural cover would shield me, I crouched and attempted to sneak away from them. Nevertheless, the darkness of the night prevented me from seeing some branches in front of me, and I stepped on them, drawing their attention.
Who's there?
Inquired one of them, shining his flashlight in my direction. Fortunately, just before they could spot me, I hid in a nook in the building's facade, allowing me to remain unnoticed,
How strange. It seems like no one's here.
remarked one.
Yes, but we should make sure.
Replied the other. Their footsteps grew closer, and I saw the light from their flashlights illuminating the area where I was concealed. In those tense moments, I held my breath, as though doing so might prevent the impending discovery. I desperately tried to think of an excuse for my unexpected presence in that secluded spot at such an hour, but no matter how hard I thought, I could not come up with any justification. As they drew nearer, mere meters from me, I began to consider my options. None of them seemed satisfactory. My heart raced, and I felt sweat trickling down my forehead despite the icy cold of the night. All I could do was wait for them to catch me and drag me back to my quarters, seeing my plan unravel.
Think, boys. General Lust has called for a meeting of all personnel at first light. You'd better get ready.
Called another guard from a distance, halting them just before the flashlight's beam could expose my hidden spot.
At your command.
Replied both of them before hurrying towards the hangar, completely forgetting about me. Relieved, I looked up at the sky and silently thanked the gods for their protection. Then I noticed that the dark, starry firmament was beginning to fade as the first rays of the sun that illuminates Olympis appeared. At that moment, I realized if I did not hurry, our troops would soon commence their morning rounds around the palace, and I would lose my opportunity. Thus, resolute and without hesitation, I emerged from my hidden spot and dashed through the bushes, running as stealthily as I could towards the first trees about 100 yards from the palace, believing they would provide my salvation. As I crossed that small stretch of land, I scanned the area several times to ensure no one was witnessing my escape. Once I reached the first trees of the forest, I began to run frantically, hoping that by the time they noticed my absence, I would be far enough away that they could not catch me. I cannot say how long I traveled through that wilderness, but when I finally stopped, I noticed that the tiny stars that dotted the night sky had completely vanished, eclipsed with a beautiful indigo sky spreading over my head. As I looked towards the horizon, between the trunks of the sturdy trees, I caught sight of the pale light of the moon. Believing myself safe, and quite exhausted from the frantic escape, I decided to rest beside one of those dense trees, which, given their arrangement, always seemed to me like some kind of barrier designed to defend the Grand Sea from the other creatures inhabiting this planet. I wished I had been mistaken, but unfortunately, I was not, though it would not take long for me to realize it. There, leaning against the sturdy trunk, I closed my eyes, ready to rest, for I had not yet slept. My intention was to regain my strength and then continue my journey, hoping to find a place of refuge. However, as soon as I closed my eyes, I heard rapid steps nearby. Startled, I woke up and looked around, trying to spot any animal that might have passed by. But the absence of any creature left me quite confused. I wanted to believe it was a figment of my imagination, the result of fatigue playing tricks on me. Attempting to dismiss it, I tried to sleep again. Barely a minute had passed when I heard another unexpected noise, this time from the branches of the tree under which I was resting. I quickly looked up as a wave of anxiety began to wash over me. My unease deepened when I started hearing mocking laughter, the source of which I could not identify, but it was clear that I was not alone. At that moment, I did not know the exact number of beasts that there were there, but judging by the laughter, there was more than one. As I stood up, I saw one of them dart past me on the left. Then, another of those creatures descended from the treetops, landing directly in front of me. I was utterly terrified by the sight of that beast, its sharp teeth bared in a menacing display. Paralyzed by the fear at the sight of the grey-furred creature, I stood motionless, unsure of what to do. I did not know if remaining still would help me to evade it, or if its 8 eyes, positioned at the front and sides of its tiny head, would allow it to see me. The truth is, I knew very little about these monsters. When I saw the creature move 2 of its 6 legs towards me, each ending in a pincer that helped it climb the treetops, I realized that staying still was not the best strategy. Just before the creature lunged at me, I heard the growls of 2 more behind me. I scarcely knew what to do as I watched them close in, ready to make me their feast. Running was futile, they were faster than I. Flying was not an option either, as I had not yet mastered that ability. Though, at that moment, I wished with all my heart that I could escape in such a manner. Climbing the trees seemed equally hopeless, for these creatures were clearly far better climbers than I could ever hope to be. Surrounded, with no apparent means of escape, I felt the cold grip of fear tighten around my heart as I had just one question in mind. What can I do?